This is Pod Populi, podcast for the people. Welcome back to Journey to June. I'm your host, Wendy Basilico, and we are here instigating your soul and who you're born to be so you leave a bold imprint in the world. And I am here always interviewing the most fascinating people that I have met on my path through golf, through motherhood, through entrepreneur journey. And this one is through a business coaching group that I'm in. And this gentleman just caught my eye because I kind of want to work with him. Dr. LeGrand, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So if anybody's an entrepreneur or high performer that wants to optimize their performance, their brain, this is the conversation you want to listen to, I feel.
Yeah.
So welcome. Where are you coming from?
I am from Washington State, like 35 minutes southeast from Seattle. So that's the area I'm at.
Nice.
Yeah, Northwest, great Northwest.
and I have seen some of your posts, and I'm just like in awe because I live in Florida in the Palms, and I've been here for 2 years, and I used to live in Tahoe, so I'm jonesing for my brain needs some mountains.
Yep. I love Florida too. We do visit Florida, but totally two different terrains. You just need, I guess, be a snowbird in Florida.
There you go.
And then in the summer times, be up in the mountains.
It is on my vision board. That's for sure. Yeah. So tell us just like where you're at with what you're doing and your company and, who you help, and then we'll go into your journey.
Yeah, for sure. My background, is going in more of a holistic approach to medicine. And so I start with my kind of journey, having ADHD myself and dyslexia, going through my own journey, working with other holistic mind doctors to overcome those challenges. And so when I started my practice, was first started out just as a family practice. And then I wanted to focus more into ADHD and helping other adults with ADHD. And so when the pandemic hit, we started changing things more virtually, helping everybody pretty much all over the world now. Adults with ADHD, but now we're niching more down to entrepreneurs because I saw a survey on this, like 70% of entrepreneurs tend to either have ADHD or undiagnosed ADHD or some kind of symptoms of it. So it's something that's very unique to me. And I love working with entrepreneurs because I'm an entrepreneur myself, having ADHD and there's challenges that go around that. And so our company, it's called Optimal Mind Performance. That's a program that we do is help understands the root of your symptoms. Whether you have ADHD or not, we care less because the diagnosis doesn't really give us much information. It's like, why are you struggling with focus, motivation, drive? Why do you have the anxiety? Why are you reaching this complete burnout as an entrepreneur? Like, what's going on there? What's the root of it? And so we do a lot of high functional lab testing to understand the root of the problem and finding ways to optimize that brain of yours. And even if things aren't so bad, people come to us also to want to optimize to just the next level, to be more focused, be more productive, being more efficient in their business. Because obviously, ultimately, you are the business, right? If you aren't focused and motivated and driven consistently on your A game, your business starts suffering. Your employees start to suffer because you're not fully 100% there. So that's something that we specialize in. And I love it because it's something that true to my heart because of my own challenges and overcoming those. And I get excited when I'm able to help others with the same kind of challenges that I had.
So just personally, I can totally relate, not just as an entrepreneur, as a athlete, as a kid that struggled in school. I mean, I think that's what drew me to you. I've done a lot of studies on neurotraining around performance. And I was just curious. I wanted to get into your brain to see how you help others optimize. And it's true, like what you're saying about you don't always have to know that you have a problem. Because when I'm hearing you say, it's like if you can't see, if you think your eyesight's good, and then all of a sudden someone like you goes, all right, let's work on your optimization. And you're like, I never thought that was possible. So I think this conversation is going to be awesome. I would love to dig into your journey of actually how you got to where you are. Okay. So I know I've read some things like early on, when you were young, that you had some studies around like working on your body, or talk to me about, like, I think it was around 11, you had either somebody, family or somebody in your neighborhood you kind of like gravitated to. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of. Yeah. So like, at a very young age, I had a hard time reading and writing. I had younger siblings that could read and write before I could. I was definitely a late bloomer because I had dyslexia and ADHD. It wasn't until like I was almost 9 till I could actually get started to reading. So definitely in kids, I mean, I'm seeing my kids, they're age 5. Actually, my daughter, I think, was age 4 when she started reading. And so I was like, wow, way more advanced than I was. But I think it's typical. I think kids are typically will start reading about age 4 or 5. And I was almost 9 before I could really start that process. And so I struggled a lot in school. And my journey really started to have like a big pivotal moment around age 14. Mainly because schooling was still a challenge and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And I was like, what am I supposed to do?
As in, let me just interrupt. As in, you struggled in school and you're like, what am I going to do? Is that what
right with my career? Like I'm like, schooling's not for me.
Yeah,
like I suck at it. And I just constantly am struggling. So I was a little worried about my future. I know most kids at that age don't worry about those things, but I did because it was such a challenge for me. Whereas other kids, like, schooling was easy for them. And so they don't think about those things. But when you're struggling so much, you do worry. You do wonder. And, of course, my parents were a little worried as well. Maybe not my dad as much. Maybe my mom was more worried about it. And she homeschooled me to try to work on this, and getting special tutors. And so it was a lot of work that I had to put her through. So I'm grateful for what she did for me, to take the time to give me the additional attention that I needed. And at 14, I'm a religious person. So I was like fasting, praying, and asking God, like, okay, what am I supposed to do with my life? Like, what is your intent for me in this life that I'm supposed to do? And the answer came pretty clear, but not what I was expecting. I knew I had to be a doctor. I was like, what? Like,
at age 14, you're literally praying, saying, give me some guidance.
Give me some guidance. But I knew it wasn't just a typical doctor. It had to do something to do with some holistic, natural. I didn't know what that was. I just knew it wasn't your typical medical doctor, but it had to do with something natural, holistically. And at that time, I didn't know what that was. We moved into an area where our neighbor was this holistic doctor. My parents, because I told my experience to my parents, they're like, yeah, I think you should go talk to, our neighbor. I think he's some kind of doctor. Went to go talk to him and found out he was a naturopathic physician. So for those who don't know naturopathic physicians, they're, depending on the state, there's like 27 different states where they're accredited medical physicians, family doctors. They go to accredited naturopathic medical school. And that's what he was. He was a family doctor, but his training was becoming a naturopathic physician. And I'm like, this is what it was. And so that kind of started my journey pursuing that. And I told God, I'm like, if you want me to do this, like, this is going to be a lot of work. I'm going to need a lot of help. Isn't that I wouldn't say, I was hoping that he would just make it easier. And like, all of a sudden academics just came to me naturally and like, all right. No, I still had to work at it a lot. I had to figure out how to manage my ADHD. I was working with that doctor and other doctors to figure out holistically what was out of the balance in my body chemistry, to bringing my biochemistry back into balance. And, so the thing that I know he gave me, God, was the passion, the drive, to be stubbornly persistent. And that's something that I know I always say that, like, a gift I think that was given to me was being stubbornly persistent and never giving up. And I failed a lot. I fell through a lot of chemistry classes, even the organic chemistry, like those are reader classes. Most times people will just leave. God kept on telling me, like, I have to do this. I'm like, okay. And it was a challenge throughout the way, but I definitely was able to get through it with his help. And it's why I'm so passionate about it, because having to go through that whole journey, I got to understand from a very high level the pain dealing with ADHD.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
That intensity. Yeah.
Okay, so at 14, you're using the spirit of God and to direct you in the pain that you're going through, not really knowing how you're going to navigate this journey of being a doctor because you don't feel probably capable. Am I correct?
Like no, definitely not capable at all.
Because I mean, literally, I played a small game in life because I squeezed through the cracks as a girl, maybe, do the right thing. I wasn't trouble. Yeah. So my mom would say, oh, she works really hard. I mean, I worked hard, but I could never, I was a C student. I never broke 1,000 on my SATs, but like my self-esteem, that affected how I played professional sport, until later. So I'm just curious where you were during like confidence wise, all that, like what was going on in your brain? If anybody's listening with a child like this. Yeah. What was going on in your brain and how'd you get over it?
I mean, during this whole time, my self-esteem was definitely low, especially in the academics. But at the same time, because of what was revealed to me, I put my trust in God. And so that did help with my self-esteem immensely. And giving me that passion, because I also was getting C's, lucky if I got like B's, never really A's. I mean, eventually, as I was managing my ADHD, when I got into college, I was able to pull off some A grades, but still struggled and stuff like that. I wouldn't say I was the top of the class, definitely not. Even when I got into medical school, it was difficult because you had to get like an 85 passing grades. And sometimes they have what they call just remediation. If you didn't, at the end of the quarter, you would have to retake they would do this intensive exam that on all the curriculum that was done for that entire quarter. So it was even more intense if you didn't get that 85 passing. And I had to do that a lot. And I got burnt out pretty quickly, but there always was, I think for me, like the difference is like, because I put my trust in God so much that it helped me move forward. I think if I didn't have that, there's no way. There's absolutely no way. I would have given up right at the moment of failing the first chemistry classes, like most people do. There's just no way. But also what was helpful was, things did get better as I was managing my ADHD, working with other doctors to figure out what was the imbalance, because I was dealing with high stress, dealing with, focus motivation issues. I was dealing with low energy even at a young age. And when they did a lot of different lab testing to see where the imbalances were, we knew exactly what to implement. And that improved my energy, improved my focus and motivation. And so things did get better. And they still continue to do, because you still have to manage it. But now I'm able to utilize my ADHD brain to its fullest capacity, like it should.
Yeah, we'll get into that. I want to ask you, I know you don't work with kids, but if someone's listening and they're a parent with a child that has experiencing what you especially, at that age, that's so hard about where you're supposed to gain your self-esteem, start to know who you are, and you don't have that confidence. Like, what do you tell them? What suggestions would you tell them?
So, what I tell kids or parents is, one thing, you do have to find something that is going to be the passion driver. And it doesn't, like, for me, it was definitely what God was telling me. But for others, it could be like when I used to work with kids back when I had my brick and mortar and work with kids with ADHD. Usually I'd spend that very first appointment just understanding them and what they're passionate about, what they like, even if it was video games. A lot of times I could find some kind of connection, which would be like, okay, what about, they might be interested in sports, athletics. And so I would have them connect it to someone they revered too. So if they were really into sports, they want to be a professional basketball player. And I'm like, okay, who is that person? And then I'd ask them like, okay, what do you think what did they have to do to get there? And because a lot of times it comes down to the kid's health. Anyone with ADHD, they just eat a crappy diet. They're not doing the things that they're supposed to be doing. And so if they can have a passion driver, that's their role model, then it's like, well, what do you think they do? What do you think they eat? Why do you think they're such good athletes? what do they do with the mindset? Like they maybe not got the best grades, but if like that's your passion, they still had to work on their mind, how to improve their mind as well. And so when I gave a child something like that, they would actually implement treatment versus just telling the mom or the parent, like this is what the kid needs to do. And then the mom or the parent would tell the kid to do it, but they weren't motivated to do it because like, well, you're just telling me to do this. But if you connected it to something that they cared about and what they were passionate about, then they would follow through more and then they would start getting results. And so like, that's just like, I think when it comes to self-esteem, you have to pair it to something that's a vision of something that, why am I eating this stuff? Why am I changing or doing the restrictive things? Or why do I care? Because frankly, what I have seen is usually kids don't, for a lot of parts, don't think it's a big deal just quite yet until they get older. But when they're young, they don't think it's a big deal yet because they're young. They're still freed, have a lot more freedom. And so they don't have any really big responsibilities until they get into high school. Then they start saying, oh, shoot, now I got to get into college, stuff like that. And so she's a parent that usually cares a lot more. And the kid doesn't think it's a problem. So you have to like help them see the vision so it won't become a problem. If that makes sense. So it's a tough thing, but it's usually where I always like to start with kids is you have to make it so they want it. Because if they don't want, they're not going to do anything about it. And so you have to pair it to something that they're passionate about and how that connects of wanting to make the changes for their own ADHD.
I love that. And it's tapping into their uniqueness and their passions and what brings them alive, which allows you to do the work that you can do. Let's take a pause and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Journey to June. I'm with Dr. LeGrand, and we are talking about optimizing our brains, our ADHD brains, to be our best self. We just talked about like your journey at that early age, what you struggled, but also like diving into that passion. So when you went to college, was the vision psychology? Or, I mean, it always looks perfect the way it is right now. Like, oh, you were the ADHD doctor. But like, what was your thinking? What was your like driven? Holistic, yes. But like, what were you going to school for, per se?
Yeah. So I think, originally, like when I had that first vision that I needed to go into becoming an naturopathic physician and stuff, I didn't know specifically the field. So just like a lot of people who go into it, I just knew that I wanted to help people and I was supposed to help people. This was my calling that I needed to do. There was still, I knew it would definitely still be something that I was going through. I didn't really know about it like for sure, because like when I first went in, I thought I was going to go into oncology because my background, I took care of a lot of cancer patients, and volunteered in hospitals and all sorts of different things. And at that time I was pretty passionate about it. But it shifted midway through medical school. I started doing rotations and rounds in autism and ADHD. And I found that was definitely more of my passion of what I wanted to, because it was my own challenges, because it even would still get brought up while I was in medical school and I was still working on myself. And since I was studying it and looking into this and fixing and like improving my own ADHD brain, I started to shift and be like, you know what? I want to help other people with this. And it really, really came clear when I got those final test results of my boards, because I actually had to retake them. I failed the first time, had to retake them. I mean, that was distraughtful and thought that like all this vision that God was leading me on was for nothing. But he reassured me. And when I got that, and I was with my wife and I was so scared to open up that letter, when she opened in, like tears in her eyes, we embraced each other and I was so overjoyed and relieved. But at that moment, like I had that thought that, coming from God, that this is why I put you through all this, so that you could understand the pains and sufferings of the people that you're going to serve. And like, even though I had ADHD, he had to put it to the extreme, to what that extreme level of pain. So I could really not just sympathize, but actually empathize, because there's a difference. people can't really empathize with somebody unless they've actually gone through it.
First of all, I totally relate to this. I mean, I just, what's popping in my head is 5 years into golf, 2 Q schools, banging my head against the wall, like couldn't even make it past the cut of the second Q school, thought I had it. And I totally relate. It's like, why am I here? What am I doing here? So, I mean, I think we all have the struggle is what our gift is, really, the lesson. That's what I hear you saying. Because to me, it's you have a drive. So I don't know if you were actually you were learning to take care of your ADHD. You were also going after something that was very hard. I did not deal with my ADHD during sport or probably right now, to be honest, in some ways, different ways. But what would you say about your mindset? Because we talk a lot about mindset. And I think you definitely have, since you're 14 and all, there's like something's driving you. And yes, it's your belief in God and the direction. But like, describe your mindset.
Yeah. So I think, mindset's a funny thing as far as how people work through it. And, there's definitely been lots of pivotal moments in my life where mindset has been important. But I will say the belief, or at least the recognition that there's something greater than you is important. Mm-hmm. Even if you don't believe in God, but to believe in something that's greater than you is a very important thing. And if you believe that there is something greater than you, whatever that force is, that the universe is, that your destiny, however you come to that conclusion, belief in that really changes the mindset. It really does. Because if you have the belief that there is some greater force of destiny, of believing in that you have a calling in life that's supposed to happen, and putting your belief in that, no matter what, it helps you redirect you each time.
100%. So how do you tap into that knowing when you don't have the answers? If you were to, suggest, and we're not even talking into the magic that you can help optimizing our brain yet, but like there's something how do you tap into that message? Because that's what I work with all my clients. It's like, if you don't have that almost guiding compass, but how do you do it personally?
Yeah. So how I do it personally, I mean, because it goes back through prayer. For me is checking in each time, having God involved in everything in my life, and doing His will and not my will. That is really what has always been the guiding compass completely. There is no way I would be where I am without Him. Like there just wouldn't be. But for others, because, not everyone's religious, and I get that. But for others, people have an internal thing that guides them, and having to check that in. So whether that's through meditation, deep thought and thinking, but there's also like exercises that I put my own patients through, where if we have these autonomic negative thoughts every day, we have 5 times the amount of negative receptors than we do have positive ones, which is unfortunate, but it's a survival instinct that we have innately. And it's what we call as autonomic negative thoughts. There's an exercise that we call as killing the ants. It's actually from Dr. Amen. And it's a really powerful process. And some people are naturally born that way and able to just think through that process. And it's pretty much just arguing with those thoughts and having more accurate thinking. So when you think of absolutes, like in my case, for a long time, I thought I was dumb. Right. Because I was not getting the grades, and arguing that process of like, okay, is that absolutely true? Like, I'm the dumbest person in the world. Okay, maybe not so. Okay, how do I feel when I have these thoughts? Well, not so great, right? How would I feel if I did not have these thoughts? Well, I'd feel amazing. What would I be able to accomplish? Well, a lot. So it's like, then you just flip on it. So could it be possibly true that you are somewhat smart? Yeah, okay. Okay. And then how true is that? Well, I did. And you look back in your history, it's like, well, I did get good grades, or I was able to do these things, because we always focus on the most one negative thing and drown out all the other positive things. I mean, for those who do social media, right? It's like that one negative comment, and like people might have left you tons of negative comments, but we focus on that one negative thing. And so when we do this accurate thinking and training, we realize the opposite is more true of that negative thought, like way more true. And then that starts flipping and changing your mindset to really pursuing what you need to accomplish. And another thing that's also have always been a pivotal thing for me too, of redirecting me, whatever that's, making shifts in my own business, and going through hard times like any kind of entrepreneur goes through, especially if you have ADHD and like you feel like, oh, I'm not being productive or I'm getting too distracted. I always go back to this thing that I was always taught. And if you have something in your destiny, something you want to accomplish, it always starts with associations every time. So if you want to change your mindset of that negative thinking, or you really want to be successful, like that's your destiny, or you want to accomplish to be more productive and focused, it all starts with association. So who do you actually associate with? Who do you talk to? We're part of an elite group in coaching, like surrounding us people of very like-minded people that also are way more successful. Like being people that are way ahead of you changes a lot of things within your mindset. And so when you associate with those people, but also part of all association is what you read, what you listen to, what you watch. Like if you're consuming a lot of negative content, like news is terrible. Like if you feel really depressed, stop watching the news. Like you start consuming more things that are going to get you to your destiny. And so that's where it all starts, because those associations then lead into your thoughts, right? Your constant thoughts. And then those thoughts lead into your actions, what you actually do, because eventually they will lead into actions. And then those actions lead into your habits. And then those habits lead into your character. And then that character leads into the destiny of what you really want to become.
I love this. And what is triggering my mind. And if anybody's listening, you need to just stop and like rewind what he just said, because there's an order to how things happen. And I actually went to Dr. Daniel Amen and got a brain scan.
Did you?
Yes. Because my boyfriend at the time he had anxiety and he was struggling a lot. So he did it.
Yeah.
And then later, I always knew all my life, like I always struggled.
Yeah, I did just continuing education, so I'm pretty familiar with it.
Struggled to get my thoughts out, blah, blah, blah. But I went in LA. It wasn't Dr. Amen per se, but it's his clinics. Yep. And they looked at my brain. They're like, holy shit. They're like, how'd you get to where you are? Because your brain's like, like, and it was really, for me, anyway, I don't want to go off on my brain scan, but I do relate to what you're saying about putting yourself in situations that empower your thinking. And when I played golf, the one shift that I think made a huge difference for me to believe what was possible is I was in front of Tiger Woods at one moment. And it was like being around that environment just literally allowed me to like go at a whole different level. And
you're able to finally see what you couldn't see, right? Unless it's in front of you and you can really see, and surrounding yourself with those people. And that's why we're in coaching, right? Like, like that's another thing that I would say is like, what has helped you? Coaching. And I've had several coaches, and I still invest in coaches because it's really helped me take the next level of where I need to go in my business. And so, yes, coaches have coaches. Even the coaches I have coaches. Yes. So everybody needs to be coached. And there's always someone ahead of you. There just always is.
Amen. And it's even just when I think of sport, it's like you wouldn't, or anything, you wouldn't go around not getting a coach to learn a skill. And so many people leave it to chance. I mean, it's just, that's what I see with the clients I have, or just around. If you look around, it's like they're not investing in their gifts, really.
Well, and it also takes 10 times the amount of time.
Yes.
Like it isn't like someone couldn't get it done, but it's going to take 10 times the amount of time. So it's like if you get a coach that already has gone through it, already paved the way, you can get there a lot faster and get to more of your visions and your dreams that you want.
Amazing. Let's take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Journey to June. I'm with Dr. LeGrand, and we are diving deep. And now we are going to dig into how you help humans like myself and entrepreneurs and adults that never probably got diagnosed with ADHD, but feel burnt out. And I mean, I'm going to set an appointment with you because all I can say, it's not like I'm dying. It's just, I want to see what's possible if I actually go down the road. And I probably have, but I want to know how do you start your appointment when someone like makes a call, like how do you start to diagnose? Cause we don't really know what we don't know, you know?
Right. So the first thing is like really understanding, cause I am in the belief that I could care less about the diagnosis of ADHD. And that's why like half of our patients and clients don't have the diagnosis, but they're entrepreneurs that are like, look, I am burnt out. I can't focus as much anymore. I'm not as productive. My business is suffering or maybe it's doing fine, but they're having a hard time making it to the next level because they know they're the bottleneck. When you finally realize that you're the bottleneck, because if you don't change your body chemistry and optimize that, how can you implement all the strategies you're learning from your coaches and business tactics and stuff like that? Because you're still the bottleneck, and it's your brain and your biochemistry that's so out of balance. So like the first thing, like when I'm doing an appointment consultation, like the first nurse consultation is really just like assess the whole medical history, because everybody has different things in the medical history. Isn't just like, okay, you have focus issues, but what else in your medical history that might be contributing to that? Is there a thyroid situation? Is there hormones? Is there a diabetes? Is there an autoimmune thing? Is there something digestive? Like, so I do a very thorough form that people fill out so I can look at that before. And then the next step is like, okay, looking at that. And also how is these challenges impacting you the most, and seeing how, because most people don't realize how it's impacting them. So I try to help you realize how is it impacting you and how so, and realizing it does become the bottleneck of what you really ultimately want. And then really figuring out, okay, what are the labs that we need to be implementing to discover the root of the problem, the root of why you can't focus, be motivated or driven, or why you're completely burnt out physically and mentally, why you might have sleep issues that might be contributing to this, or other medical conditions, right? So it's like looking at the body as a whole and diving into that. And then from there, doing a customized treatment plan. I work with people on a regular basis to help them execute, to keep them accountable, and also analyze and adjust the treatment plans. So that way we help people get the results faster versus, how it's been in most of the main medical industry is like, okay, I'll see you in 3 or 6 months and nothing happens, or it stays about the same. And so it's like, no, we want to optimize this, and we need to make sure that we're consistently working on things that are going to work and not wasting time on the things that aren't going to work. And so those are so the big difference that I think that separates me a lot from other doctors that you maybe worked with, especially when it comes to like focus issues, memory issues, motivation, or maybe you do have ADHD. It isn't like, okay, here's the medication. See you in 6 months, see you in 3 months. And then they come back, oh, okay, let's change the dosage or change the medication without even doing any kind of investigative work. So how I do things differently is like, I like to investigate. Why do you have these issues? What is the root of your memory issue? What is the root of your brain fog? What's the root of your crashing in the middle of the day? Like, why? I want to know why. And so investigating it. And now I have a roadmap to know how to fix it, but more importantly, to optimize it, even make it even better. And so that's really what sets me apart of like how I approach these kind of symptoms and issues, because medications, they might be great for emergency reasons to just function, but it doesn't fix the problem. It just is, it's just a Band-Aid. It's just to just kind of mask it until you got to do a different medication or a different dosage. And therapy is great, but if you haven't changed the biochemistry, you can't implement what you're learning from your therapy or your coaching.
Yep.
Right.
Yes, 100%. Which it's so important for someone to come to someone like you, because to me, from a personal standpoint of, I have gone to many people like you, but just because there's so much information out there. Mm-hmm. So you have regular doctors telling you stuff. I even see my mother. She's all over the map. She goes from holistic to regular doctors. Mm-hmm. And it's like when you can have someone that actually can hold space to be the investigator, like you're saying, it's so actually like releases the energy of like the the uncertainty and the almost, I don't want to say panic, but
Yeah.
that's what I see in people. Like they
Yeah.
know they have like a burnout or like a lack of energy, and then they don't know what to do. They're kind of frozen because it's either
Yeah.
meds or they don't know someone like yourself.
Yeah.
So freaking cool. Okay. So let's say, can you give some, I know you have your YouTube channel, you give some advice. Like what would be the first step if they didn't like go to you right off the bat for them to what advice would you give them?
So I think the first step, I have a lot of content on YouTube. I just started another channel called Entrepreneur Doc, but our main channel is just Dr. LeGrand, Dr. LeGrand, and has lots of information on there on ADHD and support there. And then the Entrepreneur Doc is more about the challenges with ADHD as an entrepreneur, how to overcome those challenges, and being successful as a business owner with ADHD. Now, I'm also on Instagram, and that's probably like the best step is you can go to just Dr. LeGrand. That's my handle. So just Dr. LeGrand. LeGrand is spelled LEGrand. And then just follow me and then just send me a DM. You could just put June, because of the podcast, June, and then focus. And then I can send you my focus and all day focus energy guide. So that's like a good starting point. And then we could definitely chat on Instagram to see if you want further help. If it makes sense working together, we can definitely chat on Instagram. Like that's probably the best way of doing it.
Awesome. Love that. Talk to us about the brain. Like when someone, because I even get confused, even though I got the brain scan and I know there was some parts of my brain were overactive, some under. Also, when people talk to me, there's things that are happening in my brain that it's hard for me to focus. I'm like, I can hear everything. So there's definitely something when I'm the receiver of information, I can't.
Yep. So to kind of like answer your question, about the brain and like the scans are like one thing, but it's still, in my opinion, doesn't give us enough information of why there's the challenges. This is why I like lab work to really look at true numbers of what's deficient. So for example, when we're talking about ADHD or like focus issues, motivation, drive, there's neurotransmitters, things such as like dopamine that, if we're low on that, that's going to be issues with motivation, drive, focus. But there's things like also even like other things like norepinephrine and epinephrine that manage our stress that can impact our focus. There's also things like serotonin that can impact our motivation as well as our mood and happiness and depression, but also even things like GABA that can make things difficult for your anxiety if it's low or too high. And so for me, but also it's also about the amino acids that make those neurotransmitters. And if those are deficient, your capacity of making enough, that could be the culprit. That could be the problem. It also could be different micronutrients that help make those as well, different vitamins, minerals. So this is why I like doing very thorough investigative work to see why. I always want to know why your brain is not functioning like it should be. Versus theories, right? So like there's a lot of theories. As the brain, out of all the organs in our body, the brain is the one that's misunderstood the most because it's just so much of a mystery. Whereas all the other organs, we have very more concrete lab testing, things that we do to investigate. But the thing that people don't realize or they forget the importance of, there's a lot of things that's interconnected to the brain. Just for example, the gut. If the gut's not working optimally, it's going to be very difficult to having your brain work optimally. So seeing things even with your gut, hormones. So like everyone wants to think about just the brain. I think that's what's very different with how I take the approach to someone's brain's health or to optimize their brain, is that there's other parts of the body that contribute to it because there's all these feedback communication with the brain. And you just think about it like a factory. If there's anything in the gears or in the factory system that's broken, it's not going to work efficiently. It isn't always just looking at the computer. It isn't always just looking at just that. There might be some rust going on in the gears of making the car. If we're talking about like a car factory or one of the machines or whatever, right? There's still, all of this is one system that we have to see. Where is the communication? Where are the things that are off also in your biochemistry are making those symptoms even worse? Now, it could be the brain, right? But not everyone is dealing with probably like a tumor or something. And so like going back to your scans, why is there, because what you did is a SPECT scan.
Yep.
There's lack of blood flow in certain directions, certain parts that they told you, but why? Right? Like they might say, okay, yeah, you had past trauma. You hit your head, stuff like that. That's usually, and I know this because I did their continuing education they do for doctors. So I'm very familiar with Amen Clinic. And I think it's amazing what they're doing because they're doing something different than just here, take a medication and just do an assessment. They're actually doing at least something. But I want to know, okay, why is that? Like, there's probably something else in your biochemistry that's not allowing enough blood flow and oxygen to the brain. Like there's got to be some other things that are contributing to that. And the only way to do that is like doing some investigative work to really see what's going on.
And that is so solid because I think whether it's, I don't want to name any names, but sometimes people aren't doing enough investigation and it's just kind of like, here's a pill or here's your
supplements.
Here's your supplements. And you're not really like looking back to all the things that are happening from the blood work, from everything, asking questions, what's happening when I struggle, when am I doing great? When am I not? So that, I totally agree. Oh gosh, okay. This is, I like this. I like this. But then I think of if someone's not doing the fundamentals of health and they come to you and, they're not moving their body, do you work on that stuff first and then do the testing? Like,
well, right. So I think testing can always be done no matter where you're at. Obviously, when someone comes to me and they are doing all the fundamental things, they're eating really good, they're exercising, they're sleeping, like all those things are dialed in, and they're still having issues. This is when investigative work is really, really important. But it's still also important for someone. The reason why it's important for someone who isn't dialing in on those things, because they probably done it and they failed at it, right? They tried fixing up their diet, they tried exercise, but they still weren't consistent on it. What I have found is that, and I struggled with this when I was like first starting out my brick and mortar practice of just patient to doctor compliancy of actually following through in implementation. It's always a challenge. But when I did more investigative work and showed them, it motivated them to actually change.
It goes back to what you were saying at the beginning of like finding the thing that makes them want to get
So
there.
like, because a lot of these people that come in, and I'm sure your listeners will probably have done this, whether you've tried medications, but you probably tried lots of different supplements, but guess what? You're just guessing. And doing guessing work, like if we treated supplements like we treat medications, we'd probably find that natural treatment actually would work more efficiently. And here's why I say this. Now, I'm not talking about mental medications because people just guess on that too. It's just like, okay, you take an assessment, sure, take this medication. But I'm talking like if you have diabetes or cardiovascular issues, like there's certain testing that we do first before giving the medication. We treat supplements the same way. It's like if we actually did investigative work to see, okay, you're deficient on these different nutrients. Now you take these supplements versus like, oh yeah, try that. Yeah. It's like, no, you're not going to find it. In fact, it can make things worse because you probably might have too high of that type of nutrient or too high of a certain neurotransmitter or too high of certain hormones. And now you're screwing things up. So, but people don't do that. They just like, oh, I heard someone, my friend took this, or I read this blog article or watched a YouTube video. Even the YouTube videos that I do, I always emphasize is like, look, as great as these 5 supplements work for a lot of my patients' clients, it's still what they did first is they did investigative work. And that's why it worked for them, because we actually really identified what was their root of the problem. What did they need to be fixed? And what did we need to put high dosages on certain nutrients and supplementation and lifestyle changes and certain foods that need to be specific, because we actually investigated, did lab work to identify it.
So good. I just got some lab work done from an oats test. I don't know if you're familiar, but I have acid in the gut. So almost like a SIBO. So I'm not absorbing nutrients. So it doesn't matter what I'm eating. I can work as hard as I want. But and I'm wondering why, I'm also going through menopause. Like what you're doing is so important for people's health and how they feel about themselves, let alone doing optimization of like performing at a high level, but just feeling good about oneself. It's so important. I'm in awe, honestly. I mean, I already knew I would be in awe, but just the importance of anybody listening, like doing the work that he is providing is so important. And it could alleviate, like give you momentum of self-growth and esteem, right? What's your biggest Give us like an example of someone that you helped and like what was the biggest shift that like comes to mind that.
Yeah, I think, just top of my head, we work with a lot of different patient clients, but like one, I can give an example. He was an entrepreneur. He was running 3 different businesses. And this is very common with entrepreneurs that have ADHD symptoms, is they are very scattered and they're trying all these different ideas. Even if it's one business, they're trying multiple things to try to make it work. And, he couldn't focus. He wasn't motivated, driven, and he had a complete burnout state where he was losing his energy, wasn't getting very good quality of sleep. And he was starting to feel more depressed too. It wasn't just the ADHD. It was also, he started feeling more depressed and also stressed. Like he was feeling all the emotions. So he was a basket case. And, when I was able to do the lab work, there was a lot of things that were off. And this is where it's like kind of like always my kind of starting point to see, okay, wow. And to him, it was really revealing because he's been to all the doctors and they say, oh, you're healthy as a horse. Like, well, I don't feel healthy at all. Like, and you probably have gotten this, and it's because there's a difference between standard labs. Standard labs are to making sure that you don't die. Like that's the purpose of standard labs. And that's why insurance covers it. Insurance is to ensure you don't die. That's why insurance we have it to ensure that we don't die. But that's the extent that it goes, is those types of labs. If you want to optimize things, prevent things, that takes it's investment because insurance won't cover those kind of things, but it will reveal a lot that is missing, that is not working as it should. Because when you can dial those things and figure out what those things in your biochemistry that are just off and improve all those things, guess what? The body can finally start healing itself, finally start optimizing to its fullest capacity of what it needs to be doing. And so with this individual, like when we start to adjust those things within their treatment, obviously, I get very customized supplementation based off lab testing, a nutrition based off lab testing, lifestyle changes, and then of course coaching through this whole process because you need to also implement it. So there's also a lot of things that we get in our own way and complicate things. And so I like to analyze and adjust it to fit with their lifestyle so they will not only get the results, but be consistent with it even after work with us. Because that's what I care about, is that you could consistently stick with it. So you consistently have consistent focus, have consistent energy, have consistent, good quality of health. And so it was a night and day difference for this person that not only did he start having the more energy and the focus, but also narrowing down to the one business. And then he started making more money by doing that way because he now had the focus.
Yep.
And so that was the other thing too, is that entrepreneurs like scatter the brain. So we help kind of direct that, not only because we first focused on changing the body chemistry, then we implement strategies with them. And that's what I did with this individual, is like we changed the body chemistry and then implemented the strategies, because now his body chemistry will allow him to do it, to actually follow through with the strategies, the business strategies that you probably get from other coaches. Like we do help people like start making those shifts to improving their life. But like, that's the thing. It's like, it really requires first investigating really what's going on. And this individual, like it made such a huge difference.
I love it. So if anybody is out there that feels a little burnt out, scattered, you've got to reach out to Dr. LeGrand. Okay. I want to talk about you.
Yeah.
How would you describe yourself in 3 words? Like at your best self, like when you're in your element.
3 words, man, that's hard.
I know.
Just 3, like 3 characteristic words.
Yeah.
I mean, I alluded to one already, and I don't know if it can be one word, but that's stubborn persistence. Like that is something, a trait that was given to me at a younger age. And it's something that still has served me very well. And I'm also very stubbornly persistent when it comes to my patients, like figuring out what is the problem. Like I'm not satisfied until we can try to figure out what the problem is, and getting the results. Consistency is definitely has served me well over the years. Have I always been consistent? No, but that's because I worked on myself, and that is what has helped me improve my own business. Being an entrepreneur is consistent and sticking with something. And even though as boring as it can be, I've helped my ADHD brain to make it more of a game. And it's served my business. It has served my business very well as being consistent. You said 2, right? Yeah, 2.
I said 2, but I said 3, but I will go with 2 because they're really solid.
But yeah,
a biggest influencer, like who you talked about,
besides God.
yes, I mean, it could be, but like,
Right.
you talked about, I think of not that Tiger Woods or people that like have really made a mark on your life, that have helped you to become who you are today. Like who would that be?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if besides God, like that's obviously the ultimate there. But I definitely have a lot of people that I seek for as mentors. So I've had a lot of coaches that have inspired me, helped me. But I guess like currently, like I follow a lot on Alex Hormozi, and the reason why I like about Alex Hormozi is he teaches this principle that I've always believed about: is focus on the one thing, the one system, the one process, the one channel until it becomes very effective. And us entrepreneurs, most of us have ADHD issues. Like whether you have ADHD or not, like you have those issues. And so Alex Hormozi has definitely been a really big one that I've followed a lot. I mean, Dan Martell, he's great. I've read his book before I even joined his program, but like, those are like kind of like some of the couple that I follow consistently.
But who
right
in
now.
your life, like who, you talked about someone at 14.
Okay. Like a mentor's like, well, obviously
someone
my neighbor,
who influenced you in a way that like literally shifted your life.
Well, honestly, I mean, it was obviously my neighbor, shifted my perspective about finding about naturopathic medicine was huge for me. And also my teachers, Hank Galmish, if he's listening ever, he was really a pivotal professor I had because I struggled a lot. And I would always go into his office hours and we talk about a lot of things about life and just not just my challenges, because he was my English professor. And that was my biggest challenge was English. As you guys remember, I had a hard time reading and writing. I was a very late bloomer when it came to English. And I still struggle. Like I get made fun of time when I say things wrong, or I might have like content that I posted or got a word flipped or wrong. Like it just happens. Like, yes, I still got dyslexia. I have dyslexic moments, but I delegate now. I delegate. And that's the thing that people need to realize when you have ADHD or an entrepreneur, you need to start learning that you can't do it all, especially with like the very minute kind of things that you might not be the greatest at. But yeah, I think Galmish was like a big, I would say was very important in my life because that was when I was young, older teenager, when I needed it the most.
Love it. We talk about imprint at Live Your June and that how we want to shift, leave your imprint for future generations. 2 questions. One is what's your imprint, but also what is your vision for health? I would say those 2 questions are very important to end with.
Okay. So imprint, you're meaning like my impact that I want to leave?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So for me, my vision for sure is to helping, like it always started like with ADHD, and helping people optimize their ADHD. But where I've shifted and more my vision now, my passion is helping entrepreneurs living to their fullest capacity, as many as I could possibly can. The reason why is because they help multiple people. So it goes back into more of my bigger vision was to help, I have this as a statement, I think on my Facebook page when I made this a long time ago, is like impact over 1 million people with ADHD. But it's like, that's a big number, but I want to say it's 100 million because now when I add entrepreneurs to that, that's just a trickle effect.
Yeah.
And sorry, your second question. So there was an imprint and then.
So that's your imprint, but how do you do that? Like how, when you think to me, I hear you helping, not just help me optimize, but helping me think of what's possible because I'm optimizing. Like you're shifting really like who I am and how I operate. Like, in a bigger way than just
so
medicine.
I mean, like more of my vision too is like, is to really just share more of who I am in my journey, to inspire others. And there's still a lot for me to learn. There's still a lot of steps in my life. And that, like, if you guys want to follow my journey, I'd love for any of you guys listeners, again, going to Dr. LeGrand on Instagram. I'm sharing more of my stuff, sharing stories, sharing more about not just the health side, but also how I'm growing as an entrepreneur with ADHD. So like, if you want to follow that, definitely follow that, or go to Dr. LeGrand or Entrepreneur Doc. That's the brand new YouTube channel. Dr. LeGrand's more the health side of stuff. And then, obviously, you can message me and I can send you more information on DMing there.
I'm just going to end. I'm going to throw this in because we're talking a lot from an entrepreneur, but then you're holistic doctor. You're a father of two.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of it too. Like, just as a father, what last thing would you say to someone that gets burnt out from a holistic? Because I'm really about the human. It doesn't. If you're an athlete, if you're a leader, how you operate doesn't just affect your business; it's affecting you across the board.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess, like when you dial in with who you are, like what's the difference as you are as a partner, a father? How do you describe that? And what's your vision in that way? I guess.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, as far as like, being a father figure, like that's very important to me. And I kind of always look at this from top down, and my will always is what is God's will. Cause God's will for me is always going to impact my marriage, that's important to me. And that impacts my kids. And then that impacts the people that I serve. Right. Mm-hmm. So, and so it really kind of comes always back to connecting with my will, with God, of what that is. And that helps my compass of really, and he has this vision that I still probably don't see the full picture of it. I'm seeing glimpses of it. And the more and more as I see more and more of it, I'm seeing more of this vision. And his intention was first put me through hell to go through this pain, to understand this pain so that I could serve the people that I was supposed to serve. And now I'm finding that who I'm becoming, because I'm now not just someone who has ADHD anymore. I'm an entrepreneur that has ADHD and been able to successfully go through it. There's still challenges with it. And so sharing my thing for not only for the people I serve, but also for my own kids. Both my kids have ADHD. Like I've already told my wife, like, look, but I'm totally like, I would not change my ADHD. I never say I cure ADHD. I optimize someone's ADHD brain because it needs to be optimized, because we're the movers and the shakers of this world. So that is my passion, is to help people realize that the entrepreneurs that are out there that think that they cannot have an imprint and an impact. That is my calling, is to help them see that and help them achieve that, because that's where lights me, is because God showed me that. He showed me that way. And now I want to help others. And pretty much I'm just an instrument in God's hands. That's all I am. I'm just an instrument. He showed it to me. And now that he's done that, I'm the instrument in his hands to help other entrepreneurs be able to have the same kind of, results and imprint. I
love it. Well, if you are someone that resonates with Dr. Grand, definitely reach out. You will be, if you haven't done this work, you will, I don't even say, like, it just will blow your mind, really, what's possible. So definitely reach out and be curious. And I thank you so much for coming on Journey to June. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, since we only know each other on the group. And I just pinned him and was like, I love what you talk about. I'm going to get you on my podcast. So thank you so much.
No, thank you so much, Wendy, for having me. And like she's just saying, just DM me at Dr. LeGrand. If you just DM me June Focus, I could send you a guide. It's my all-day focus energy guide. If you're struggling there, it's like a full, thorough list of just like different, treatments to implement, foods, nutrients, and also lab testing that usually I have people get started on. And also we could chat there if you're interested. But yeah, Thank you so much for having me, Wendy.
Thank you so much. And anybody listening, join us again on any of the platforms of Journey to June, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you.